You don't plant racehorse corn on really dry ground, right? You want to plant that, your lighter soil varieties on lighter soil. You don't want to plant them on your black soil. The same is true of trees. So you, just like picking corn and soybean varieties by soil type, you want to use soil, sunlight, other characteristics to help determine what particular tree is going to be the best for any given situation. And I know that's a cop-out, I know it's not a very good answer, but it's an answer that doesn't get everybody in this room going to a garden center and buying the same thing and bringing it home, right? Which is really the problem that we have. And the choices are limited to begin with. So preventative diversification is what we now talk about. We talk about using the site to select the species and primarily, as much as we can, use native species because they belong here and they have innate resistances to pests and disease problems. So did that answer that question?
Not really. Yes, we're gonna have mulberry trees all over, is what you're saying.
So, all right. All the farmers want to know, what do I plant in my windbreak? I don't want seed, I don't want thorns, I don't want any of this stuff. I tell them one of two things. Either you got to get used to eastern red cedars, right? From a disease perspective, there's nothing tougher than an eastern red cedar. And it also tolerates the widest range of soil preferences. Okay, you see them in wetlands, you see them on dry knobs. Eastern red cedar would be a really nice windbreak tree, but culturally it's just not something that we're accustomed to. And it's native too, by the way, right? While we're on the, let me finish emerald ash borer and then we'll come back to windbreaks. So, preventatively, you can, if you have an ash tree that you know and you love, and there are a couple of you in this room that I know do, and that I take care of your ash trees, you can elect to, on a regular basis, treat your ash tree to essentially make it poisonous to the emerald ash borer beetle. Okay, so what happens is the female beetle comes and lands on the bark of your tree and she lays her eggs in the bark. The eggs then, once they overwinter, as they're starting to mature and cause damage to the tree, they eat the tree and the tree's toxic to them and they die. So that tree is then protected from getting emerald ash borer. It's like a immunization, but it requires a booster shot every 2 years in order to do that. Tom was also asking a little bit about that before we got started. Where was I going with this? Help me out, Tom.
Is there a natural predator against them that you can bring in and kill the ash borer?
It's another good question. So there are native pests to these beetles in China that they have brought to the United States, and we also, let's think about the track record that we have as a United States Department of Agriculture at bringing pests from other places, right? It's not the best, right? But there is a native predator to the emerald ash borer that has actually been, if we lived in Fairfield, we'd know all about it because they brought this little, tiny little mite, and they released, I don't know, they released a jar about this size that had about 7 million bugs in it. I'm not kidding, it was that ridiculous. Into the environment at Fairfield, hoping that might control their emerald ash borer problem. And they're in the second year of that study, so the results aren't in yet. But they're cautiously optimistic. So preventative treatment of your ash trees, the analogy that I was trying to use for Tom and Dean when we start is, and I'm not a medical professional by any stretch of the imagination, but I would imagine that the malaria, if I were traveling to Africa, I would want the malaria vaccine before I was exposed to malaria. And then while it might work a little bit, it might not do me as much good after I contracted malaria than if I'd had it before I contracted malaria. The treatment for emerald ash borer is the same. So we want to treat before we have a known infestation. If you really want to see what really bad emerald ash borer looks like, the hospital on the north side of Waterloo is Allen, right?
Yeah.
Go to Allen Hospital, and that stoplight on the north side of the hospital, the east-west road is Donald Street. You could turn left or you could turn right on Donald Street. I was just there a week ago. You can drive either direction on Donald Street, however far you wanted to go, and you will see a lot of dead trees. They will all be ash, and they will all have, and I will tell you, they all looked great a year ago. Okay? That's what emerald ash borer looks like if you're in that neighborhood. That's the closest place I can tell you to go to just be able to see it. We do have now a known infestation of emerald ash borer in the county, in Belle Plaine. I was in Belle Plaine treating trees. I grabbed a sandwich and went to the park, sat down at the park to enjoy my lunch, and I thought, oh crap, here it is. So I called the right people. They came and identified it as a known infestation. The treatment recommendation, Iowa State's treatment recommendations are, you don't have to treat until you know you have an infestation within 15 miles of you. Technically, we don't have anything within 15 miles of us here in Vinton, okay? There are a lot of trees I've been looking at after the windstorm, and the trees' response to the damage that they sustained as a result of the windstorm sometimes replicate what emerald ash borer looks like. I haven't, and I've been pulling branches out of trees. I'm kind of the gorilla at night. I know when the Parks and Rec guys go home, and I pull branches out of trees after they've gone home. Okay? You're on the board, right?
Not anymore. You're
Oh,
safe.
thank you. I haven't found anything yet in town. There's several trees that look like they could have emerald ash borer, but I bark peeled a lot of them, and I haven't found it yet. And I do need a hobby.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Feeling the love today.
Yeah, that's right.
Questions on emerald ash borer?
Can you bring any species of trees that are already resistant? You said that were in China.
So they're trying to figure out, good question, Tim. They're trying to figure out what it is that makes Chinese Fraxinus resistant to the beetle. They haven't figured it out yet. There's two trees, one's in Michigan, one's in Ohio, that emerald ash borer came through a woodland, a timber, destroyed all the ash trees, and in the middle of each one of these timbers, there's a ash tree. It doesn't look like it's been affected. So if that were Studer's property, he'd be locking that thing down and selling the genetic rights to that tree.
I'm not that lucky.
Right? Okay? Because that may be the golden ticket. There may be some goofball tree in North America that somehow has some genetic resistance to emerald ash borer. So if we ever want to bring ash back as a street tree, right now, all of the research says either you're treating ash or you're not going to have ash. Now, like with Dutch elm disease, we can still go to the woods and find American elms and pick mushrooms and all kinds of stuff. There's enough, we think that there will be enough seed rain of ash to allow young stuff to kind of persist, but we're probably in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and into Illinois, you're never going to, unless they're treated, you're never going to see an ash tree get above 6 or 8 inches ever again. Period. Good question. Anything else? Another one of Tom's questions was on American elm. So American elm is a completely different situation. It's a fungus, and there have been quite a large number by comparison, of American elms. Even here, I could take you around town and I could show you a couple of good-sized American elms or even younger ones that I believe probably have an innate genetic resistance to the fungus. So there are trees that are gold mines. One exists on the Princeton campus in New Jersey. Another one exists, it's actually on Mount Vernon. It exists at Mount Vernon. That selection, the selections that's been made from that tree is called Valley Forge. So we've bred American elms or replicated American elms based on native innate resistances. We hope someday we'll be able to do that with ash trees, but right now the odds are really against us. So you can go to the nursery today and buy elm. You can buy one of two kinds of American, or I'm gonna lump them into two kinds. You can buy true American elms, Ulmus americana, that have been bred for genetic resistance, or they've taken American elms and they've hybridized them with Siberian or Chinese elms. Many of you probably have other first names for those elms, right? No, nobody knows what I'm talking about. Dave, help me out here.
Chinese elm? Trash tree.
Trash tree, piss elm,
It's right in there with the box elder.
Yep. So they've been hybridized. We can hybridize or make those cousins mate together, and what they end up looking like from a form perspective. You know, the American elm is this beautiful vase-shaped, nice, structured, mature tree. The hybridized ones take on the appearance of the Chinese and Siberian elms. So they look like they belong in a fence row, right? They don't look like street trees. So be careful if you want an elm. I'm just telling you, you want to ask the question, is this a hybrid or is this not? I mean, there's nothing wrong with the hybrids. They're going to be resistant to the disease, but they're not going to look like an American elm. Okay?
What about honeysuckles?
Please, don't be planting honeysuckle. That was another one of our examples of the government. I'm here from the government, I'm here to help.
Yeah, Lion Energy was promoting honeysuckles.
Recently?
Well, 2 or 3 years ago, I got a call from them.
Honeysuckle? Honeysuckle is a Eurasian species, also brought to North America for purposes of conservation, right? 1960s theory conservation was pretty much, it was one of two things. Let nature take its course. I'm way oversimplifying there, right?